Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Real Positive Girl podcast with me, Sabrina. This is the show that'll help you become your best self, and today we are talking about how to be a bright spot in the world, being a role model for encouragement and positivity. But before we jump into that, as always, I want to invite you to come say hi to me on Instagram and on TikTok. I am at Sabrina Joy Perozzo. I'd love to be friends with you online. Plus, a lot of the content that I do on either of those platforms is like a mini version of maybe some things that you heard here on the podcast, but also just some other general mental health mindset tips and lessons and things that I think that you would be really interested in. Also, you are welcome to check the link below in the show notes for a link to sign up for my weekly newsletter that comes out every Wednesday. And that, again, has like other stories and tips, and I'll let you know when things are coming up that you may or may not be interested in. Also, you can sign up to be a part of my Facebook group, which is Real Positive Girl Community. Let's see, there's always so many things. You can send me an email if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. And there's also a link for the anonymous topic suggestion. So if you have a suggestion for the podcast and you don't want to tell me directly, totally fine. I created an anonymous survey for you to fill out and submit to me. So all those things and probably more that I forgot are available for you in the show notes below. But let's go ahead and jump into today's topic, which is, again, how to be a bright spot in the world, being a role model for encouragement and positivity. So let me start by saying that you do not, I repeat, you do not need to be positive all the time. I honestly don't believe that we can be positive all the time because there are difficult things that we are going through. And those things require like a different mindset and sometimes a different mood, or we choose to have a different mood. Usually I do, to figure out and get through it, right? So there is no need to pretend you are in a good mood or feeling positive all the time because it's extremely unnecessary. And if you ever come across people that tell you that you have to be in a positive mood all the time, or that, positivity is the only way to go, that is them being toxic. Toxic positivity. People that really try to push off the fact that positivity is the only way to be, the only way to have like a good, positive life, they are wrong. They're mistaken. Maybe that's just the fallacy that they choose to live in because it's easier for them to be happy or force themselves to be happy or pretend to be happy rather than face the things that they need to work through and that they struggle with in their own life and their own mental health and their own mindset. And that's their business, right? But I'm here to tell you that you shouldn't do that. And it's okay to be upset and angry and frustrated and irritated and bored and bitter. You just need to make sure, as always, as I always say, that you don't stay in those emotions. You don't stay in those places, because living in the pit of despair is like the worst motel that you could ever visit. Ever. It's supposed to be like a drive-by like wave of like, oh, yep, dealing with this. Oh, we're going to keep going. We're going to keep it moving. But even when you aren't being like super happy, bubbly, filled with joy, that's typically how I would suggest myself being, maybe like 60% of the time, you can still be a role model for positivity. Like you absolutely could. There's not any sort of prerequisites that you have to hit. It's all in the way that you carry yourself, like who you are and how you decide to respond to situations, and whether you allow yourself to be defeated altogether or figure out how to pick yourself back up again and move forward. So you see, there are no pre-qualifications for you to be a role model, be someone that would look up to you, or for you to be that person that really inserts encouragement into people's lives. And a lot of times, we get so caught up and we start believing that a role model means we need to be perfect in most things we do and be seen as someone that is sought after to be copied or emulated or jealous of. Those when you think of celebrities or people that have a big following online, or, just people that are kind of like, mini famous, like even in your town, you know what I mean? But this isn't true. Like you don't have to be. You can literally be like that no-name person, how I can kind of consider myself in my life, and still be like a role model that people look up to. You can be making like tons of mistakes, going through failures, going through the hardest season of your life, and be a fantastic role model. And yes, maybe only for certain people, like you're not going to be, the role model for the entire world, totally fine. But that doesn't discount being someone others look up to. That doesn't mean that just because less people look up to you, that means that you are not as great of a moral model or a person in life. Absolutely not. No, it means that you're needed for that select group of people. And so that's important to remember. And, normally I start my episodes with telling you a little story, but I'm fitting it in here. And it's not really even like that dramatic of a story. I commented on the internet once, and I literally remember where I was standing in the house that we used to live in the kitchen by the back patio door, when I commented that it's important to remember that all of us are role models in some way, and we should live our lives knowing that someone is looking up to us. Now, just to be honest with you, I had made a comment on, I think it was like a Disney like teen stars like post about how they were frolicking around online with pictures that seemed inappropriate to me, right? And I was like, okay, well, this person's a role model. I'm kind of disappointed that this is the kind of facade, or this is the kind of like way that they are presenting themselves. And then everyone in that post kind of like attacked me because they're like, no, she's not a role model, or she doesn't have to be, or this, that, and the other. And I'm just like, well, but you were like a child star on the Disney Channel. Like, that's kind of a responsibility that you signed up for anyway. And so it's such a rememberable moment for me talking about role models and how much people are like, no, we don't have to accept that if we don't want to. And like I said, a lot of people did not like that at all. They don't want to take on the responsibility of someone else looking up to them for how they live their lives and how they behaved. And I totally get it. Like when I step back and like widen my perspective, and I try to do this all of the time because it really helps me to better understand people and also not be so fixed to my own mindset and think that everything that's going through my mind is correct necessarily. You got to test it. But I wouldn't want to be blamed for what someone else does because they said they learned it from me, right? That would be like, oh my gosh, like you learned that from me and now you got in trouble for it, but I didn't get in trouble for it because it's just like we live our lives differently. That really sucks, right? And then you feel like you have to burden that blame. It really, for this to all work out well, to be honest with you, it requires that the person looking up to you knows they are still responsible for how they act, but are choosing to get their guidance on what decisions to make from you. This is still scary, I know, but it's important for everyone to realize that they are responsible for themselves, for how they act and the decisions they make. And, they may look up to you and think like it's okay for them to dye their hair the same color that you have your hair because they really think that you're so amazing and kind and nice and they want to be like you. But then they get in trouble for dyeing their hair because they're like a 13-year-old girl that didn't ask permission if they could do that. And they did it with a box color while their mom was out and got in trouble. So, it's just like, you got to know the balance. We have to like know the balance, but I feel like a lot of people don't want to live their life with the responsibility of knowing that they are responsible for their own thoughts and behaviors and mindsets and actions. I actually had an interaction on the internet about that today as well, about how like people, like some person said that they do not feel, well, several people said that they don't feel like they are responsible for the emotions that they have and how they decide to respond and react based on those emotions, which is a whole nother thing I'm not going to go into. One day I will. But it's kind of like this, really? We all are responsible for what we do, because people that struggle with people that struggle with control issues. I wouldn't say people pleasing. I'm like, no, that's not the one that we're talking about today. People that struggle with control issues, they want to control everything else but themselves. And really the only thing you can control in life is yourself. You can control what you think and how you make decisions and your actions that you take and all of that. And yes, an emotion might come onto you like overwhelmingly so, but you still have a decision on whether you react or respond to it. So anyway, it's an interesting conversation that if you were interested in hearing that, please drop me a line. Let me know. But yeah, it's still scary for you to, if you really do want to be a role model and someone's looking up to you, but they decide to make a decision that you made, but they're not quite ready for them to make that in their life. And they want to like blame it on you because they're like, well, so-and-so, I look up to them and they did it, so I could do it. Everyone has to take responsibility for what they're doing and know that despite someone else maybe that's exactly like them. Maybe it's like their twin and they do it and then you do it, but it doesn't work out well for you. Those are the chances that you're taking, unfortunately. But so really the reason that I encourage people to live their life this way is because it keeps a fire lit under us to not give up, which is so important. I'm sure no one would debate that with me. It's important for us to have something that's continuing to help us keep going. Even in times of rest and where we need to take a break, you still want that kind of like churning and crackling a little bit because it'll help you get back into the swing of things when your downtime and when your break is over. And, we are more likely to keep going and learn from every situation we encounter if we know people are looking up to us as role models, as someone that they really respect and would like to, kind of model their life after. And, we're also more likely to do the best we can in every single situation when we know that people are looking up to us, when we know that we are a role model. And before we dive too deep into this, and before I get to the tips that I want to share with you, you might be thinking already, Sabrina, I spend time with no one. I am the world's most introverted person ever, 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 ever. So no one's looking up to me. No one cares who I am. This doesn't matter. And I'm here to tell you that even if someone hasn't directly told you that you are their role model, they look up to you. Like even if you don't work in an office, I don't work in an office. I work at home in my own personal home office. I don't see people like in real life day to day, unless you count my husband and my kid during the summertime. But I don't. But even the people that you see that don't know you, you are still a role model for. A example that I like to give is that if you were going to go out to get coffee and you see someone coming in and you hold the door open for them because you see them coming in and maybe you're coming out or vice versa and you hold the door for them. Even something as small as that is an act of just being a good, positive role model. You are holding the door for them. You're doing something nice for them. You're doing something for them that's courteous that you literally didn't have to do. We all go around thinking that we should have to do those things when in reality, we don't have to do anything. We really don't have to do anything, but if you choose to do something, it's like, quote unquote, considered like the right thing to do, but it is. It's the nice thing to do. It's the courteous thing to do. And you choosing to do that is a good way to model positivity to other people, that people don't even know you. And the other point that I would make that actually something that's had an impact on me when I was younger is when I do see people do that, like open the door for people, or if you see someone on the street and they drop everything and like a stranger just comes up behind them and helps them pick up all their stuff and carry it, or if you're going through the drive-thru and someone in front of you like pays it forward, so they pay for the car in front of you, pays for your drink or your food or whatever it is that you will, that the person that's observing that behavior will also be like, oh my gosh, that seemed like such a nice, kind thing to do. I want to do something nice and kind, so I am going to do that. And again, you are a role model for not only changing people's opinions on how they should act towards others, but also giving them ideas on how they could also give back and be an amazing person. Just something for you to consider. And also, being a role model, like the most classic example of being a role model is obviously being a parent to a child. So you are modeling behavior for kiddos to observe and copy. And sometimes we forget this. Me as a mom, I have forgotten this many times, that we are, a role model, someone that our kids are looking up to, and they will copy our behavior. And we don't realize that we're, demonstrating behavior that we shouldn't have, or saying things that we shouldn't have, until it is mirrored in our little kiddos' face and mannerisms. It's just like, it's really like it feels like a slap in the face sometimes. It's like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, I need to stop. Okay. It's kind of like a quick reminder. But as long as we realize that we're, we need to tighten things up and change things up and take responsibility for how we live our lives, we're golden. So whether you're a role model and everything is going right in your life or everything feels like it's going wrong, you're still a role model because people are going to see how you push through it, how you make do, how you continue to stay as positive or neutral or, gracious or thankful through whatever you're going through. So it's important that you just realize the benefits for being a role model is really for yourself and for others. It's a twofer. So it's absolutely fantastic. So, okay. Today, I'm going to share with you 5 ways to really lean into being a role model and an encourager for others in life and for yourself, because you might think it's silly. You're like, I'm not being a role model for myself. I'm just being myself, Sabrina. But actually continuing to do the best things that you can in your life to be your best self, you're being a role model for yourself, and you're reminding yourself of how you actually want to be. And then you can continue being that person even when you like fall off a little bit, because we're not perfect. No one is. And so sometimes when we just get off the beaten path and we're no longer being the person that we strive to be, we can remind ourselves, oh my gosh, but remember the person that I was just last week. Let's try to get back to her, right? Let's try to use her as a role model for me to get back on track for whatever that means to you. So it's helpful for others and for yourself. Okay, so 5 tips, 5 ways. Let's go ahead and jump right in. I am excited. Okay, so number 1 is focus on being authentically yourself despite opinions and judgments. Focus on being authentically yourself despite opinions and judgments. Easy, right? Yeah, totally. So this can be really difficult especially if you deal with like fear of judgment and opinions from others. But the more you do it, the easier it becomes, right? That's it. No, that's not it. But it's true. The more that you do it, the easier it becomes. So with authenticity, I actually just did a quick video about this. It's important for you to realize that you just need to take baby steps if you are afraid of dealing with other people's judgments and opinions. It can be really difficult when people are pushing back on you and telling you that they don't like the way that you live your life or who you are, or you are super wrapped up in being a people pleaser. Believe me, I know. Lifelong people pleaser here, so I'm no judgment on anything really, to be honest with you. But if you're a people pleaser, so you're always fixated on how everyone else is doing, taking up that burden of their responsibilities, and you're never focusing on yourself, then you're not living your most authentic life. And so if you want to engage in really being a role model and encourager for others, you really need to be operating your most authentic life. And so focusing on that, even taking baby steps of someone saying that they don't like something that you have voiced that you liked, but standing your ground and being like, oh, okay, that's fine. I accept the fact that you don't like this, but I really like this. And I'm going to continue to like this, because the people pleaser in that would be like, oh, you don't like that? Okay, well, maybe I don't like that either. And you would immediately want to change your mind. Maybe not immediately, but over time, change your mind and really go with whatever their opinion is, because it's important to make them happy and to side with them. But when you're authentically yourself, you are deciding with whatever makes you feel good, whatever really fulfills you and is true to yourself. So focus on being authentically yourself despite opinions and judgments. Take it slow, take it like tiptoe steps as you can to slowly move into and lean into and flex into your most authentic self. Over time, it'll become so much easier and you'll care less, and you will be living the life of feeling unbothered a lot of the time. That's the goal. It's literally the thing I talk to my therapist about every single week. How can I be more unbothered so I can just be myself? And not caring, there's a difference between, actually one of my favorite fitness people online, Jordan Syatt, talks about how, we can care a little bit. Wait, is it him that talks about this? I think it is. We're it's not that you don't care at all what people think, but you're not going to allow that to affect the things that are important to you or that are super core values and beliefs for you, because those are going to be different for everyone. It's just that you're not going to not care about what people think at all. It's just that you're not going to allow it to dictate your life and hold you hostage. I don't think it was Jordan Syatt. Maybe it wasn't. Was it this other person? It might have been another influencer. So don't hold me to that. I think it was him, but it might not have been. Regardless, it's important for us to realize that. So there is that. Number two, be driven by your own personal values. So super important. Be driven, which means to be pushed and have the desire to do whatever in your life based on your own personal values. Be clear on how you want to live your life, what habits that you want to engage in, what habits you don't want to engage in, what you will do and what you won't do, and stick to these things because it's best for you and for becoming your best self. And the reason why it's important for you to, be driven by your own personal values in regards to being a role model and an encourager is because when you're a role model, again, you're being your most authentic self and you are really standing firm into the things that you believe in, the things that are important and are high value to you, and that's how you want to live your life. You're not going to allow other people to sway that unless you get enough evidence for you to change your mind, because it is okay to change your mind. That's totally fine. But it's super important for us to realize that we need to just live by our own personal values. Sorry, I got super distracted for a second. But yeah, we need to be clear on how you want to live your life and not allow other people to force you to live it another way. That's really important. Okay, so yes, be driven by your own personal values and just make sure that even if people are trying to trash your values, which if anyone's coming at you trying to trash anything that you believe in or that you feel like is a value for you and things you have to follow for you to feel like you're living the best life that you can based on whatever what's hold true to you, that just means that they have their own insecurities about their own values and beliefs, and they're maybe a little bit shaken on those, and so they're trying to take it out on you. So just remember, they're projecting onto you, and try not to worry about that too much. Okay, so number 3, be accepting of others with an open mind. I think this is so important because it kind of couples along with widening your perspective. So it's important for you to be accepting of others with an open mind for being a role model and an encourager, because it allows you to be that for different types of people, even if these are people that are not exactly like you, or maybe not even necessarily people that you would be friends with or, really be in your community. Because just because you accept someone doesn't mean you have to agree with them or support them in what they are doing at all. So you can definitely just respect someone and accept them for who they are and what they like to do. But that doesn't mean that it has to be identical to what your life is about. And if you're able to accept people and widen your perspective of an understanding is not accepting, just so you know, but understanding how they live their life and why they do it that way, it allows you to definitely just be an encourager for anyone in whatever part of life that they are in it. And I just think it's so important because we spend so much time trying to cast people out or leave them out of situations and groups and communities. For what though? What is that serving? How is that changing what's happening in your life? Why would we try to keep people out and any of that? So just it's better to be more accepting, have an open mind that someone else has a different perspective on how to do things than you, how to problem solve than you, how to live their best life than you, because they grew up in a different way. They've gone through different struggles and problems than you, and they are on a different level with their mindset, with their mental health. Maybe they don't have the time or energy or money to really help them as much as you do or as someone else does. And everyone's just on a different level and in a different season of life. We need to recognize that and accept that's okay. And it's fine. It's no big deal. It's no big deal at all. Okay, number 4, share your mistakes and failures openly and with minimal shame. So when I was writing these notes and I wrote, share your mistakes and failures openly, I also wanted to put, and without shame. However, me indicating that you need to do anything without shame, I feel like it's pressing upon you the fact that you can only do this if you don't have shame. And that is not the point that I'm trying to get across at all whatsoever. I want you to be able to share and admit to mistakes and failures openly with others with the minimal amount of shame that you are able to do. So if you're working on dealing with a lot of shame in your life, which I've definitely gone through that as well, it's important for you to know that you don't have to be without shame. Literally, you don't have to be. You just need to be working on it so that it doesn't run your life and control you and hold you hostage. So with whatever minimal amount of shame that you can have at that moment in your life, which might be different from a month ago, which will be different from like 6 months from now, is totally fine and acceptable. So be open and honest about what you've gone through, how difficult it was, and how you made it through. It's the best way for you to be a role model and an encourager, because if you're telling someone about what you've gone through and maybe they're going through something similar, or maybe they've never gone through that, but they can still glean information and knowledge from your experience. So if they do go through something similar, or they know someone else that's gone through something similar, they can pass that knowledge along, that someone was like, accepted the fact that they went through this mistake or failure, understood like what precautions may have happened to lead them to this place or what triggered it, and how they decided to not give up and how they kept going, and maybe the hardship they had to deal with it because of it. But this is the other side they're on, and they're grateful for the experience, even though it really probably sucked in the moment. So that's just the reality of it, right? So sharing your mistakes and failures openly with minimal shame is definitely such a bomb role model encourager move, because they're like, wow, you really just like, you're living your life, you're getting through it, and you're not allowing it to hold you back, which is fantastic. Okay, so the last one we have, number 5, is commit to pushing through struggles and setbacks. So it's important for you to not give up on yourself and spend time pouring back into yourself to be encouraged and taken care of, so you will keep moving forward despite your own struggles. So yes, being a role model, you feel like you're pouring out a lot to other people and an encourager, not necessarily, because if you're just living your life the best way that you can without actually pouring back into other people, then you can still be a role model. But if you are doing both, where you're like being the role model, you're pouring in other people by being an encourager and helping people out, you still need to make sure that you're committing to pushing through your own struggles and setbacks and taking the time to have that rest and have that reset that you may need, that self-care, so that you can continue moving forward and continue on this journey of becoming your best self. So do not forget that you need to continually recommit to pushing through those things and not letting those things defeat you and dragging you down to where? That pit of despair. So just remember that. This one, like, I feel like this last one's kind of like a reminder. The other 4 are kind of like action steps. And this one's a reminder, just a recommittal in your mindset of like, okay, we're going to keep going. This really sucks right now. It's really hard. I feel alone in this. I don't have many people to call on for help, but we're going to continue to go forward. Maybe let's take a little break, take care of myself so I can feel like I have more energy to keep on putting up the fight, if that's what the season of life that I'm in right now. But that's all 5, you guys. That's all 5 of the ways of how you can really lean into being a role model and an encourager in your life for yourself and for the benefit of others. So thank you so much for listening to the Real Positive Girl podcast. Again, with me, Sabrina. I appreciate you guys being here and listening, downloading, and sharing the show. Don't forget to check the show notes below to sign up for the weekly newsletter, to follow me on socials, to join the Facebook community, to submit an anonymous topic suggestion for the podcast, or to send me an email or anything else that's down there. But until next time, have a good one, and I will see you all next time. Bye, everyone.